I want to introduce my co-host with me, Linda Willard, who's also a member of the Breeders' Education Committee. So,
hello.
Linda, how are you?
Doing great. How's everybody out there? We're glad you're here to join us for these wonderful ladies. And
absolutely, we are excited to have an amazing couple of segments. We had our first webinar with the Breeders' Education Committee. Huge success. I know you guys got a lot of feedback, and we're doing it again.
Exactly. Only more so this time because we have a million questions, and we don't want to get worried. Those of you who sent questions, if we don't get to all of them, because there were so many that we kind of had to work with a list, so we would cover the same things with these three breeders that we covered with the last three breeders, so there would be consistency in the knowledge going forward. And I would like to read just a statement that was prepared by the committee. I'm just going to read it, so it's not going to be all that exciting, but I'm going to read it excitingly. So here we go. During these webinars from the Breeder Education Committee, we hope to find out from the breeder panelists what they feel their path to success was. Was it breeding principles, research of pedigrees, or was it just plain luck? At least we think in the beginning, sometimes it's just plain luck. We believe successful breeders do have a plan for what they want to accomplish and produce. And in most cases, if you compare different breeders, those plans are oddly similar. Where do they think they are now? And that's something we will ask all of you today. So it may be that if some of our newer breeders were to follow the examples put forth by our panelists, they might find similar paths to success. For the rest of us, we're always still learning, and we hope you enjoy this peek into our panelist breeding programs. Thank you.
Awesome, awesome. Well, a lot of you probably recognize some of the faces that are with us today. These ladies are amazing. You have seen them not only outside the ring, but you have probably seen them inside the ring, whether you're competing against them or you're cheering them on, which you can all raise your hands for both of those. And most importantly, that you know that we have just a combination of talent, experience, and most importantly, knowledge. So ladies, I'm going to let you do a brief introduction of yourselves before we jump into some questions real quick. So Karen, how are you? Good evening.
I'm delighted to be here.
We are delighted to have you. For those who might not know, we have a lot of newbies that join us. Tell us a little bit in a Cliff Note version, I guess, not to take away from any of your success, just a little background so we can get a snippet of what we can look forward to.
You got it. I have been a Golden Retriever lover for pretty much my entire life, as my mother was a very wonderful breeder of Golden Retrievers. So I've been involved about 50 years, starting as a junior handler, and have kind of split my time in Golden Retrievers as a breeder, but also as a handler. So there were many clients involved. There were many wonderful dogs that I've had my hands on that became a part of my own breeding program, which is kind of where I am today. I have a culmination of some very great dogs from an old pedigree that I enjoy consistency with my line today.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Rhonda, tell us, what can we, those of us who know you, you know, obviously we know that you do have a judging license as well, but inside the ring, but you know, just listening to your intros that we had before with Karen and Yvonne and Rhonda, you guys are all amazing folks. Give us a little background.
Well, let me make a quick correction, because after I gave that little intro where I said I'd produced about 60 champions, Kathy told me, no, it's over 70. So I'll make that quick correction. And started in the early 70s. Just enjoyed, the showing and confirmation. And over time, you build your friendships through show people. So it's sort of like going out for the weekend with your friends. And that was primarily the first half of my years in dogs. And there's sort of a dividing line, because even though I continued to show and breed, my focus shifted to health research more toward the last half.
It's a really fun kind of segue into how you started here, and we were talking a little bit about things that got us interested in before. So for all of you joining, there is a little meeting before the meeting, just so you guys know. But we were talking about how a lot of us got involved in obedience first, and that kind of leads me to you, Yvonne. You have an amazing record with your dogs, a long history. Tell us a little bit more about that.
How I all began was I had a giant schnauzer. So we figured he was a big dog and needed obedience. And that was the beginning. And I was fortunate to train with Bernie Brown. And I grew up on farms. So I was always around animals, and I had horses, and he thought I had a natural knack for it. So he twisted my arm to have a golden retriever out of his champion, obedience trial champion, Meadow Ponds Dust Commander.
Mm-hmm.
And that female that I had the pick female, and she was the beginning that led me down this road. And what a thrill it has been to compete and see all the wonderful handlers, obedience competition. I mean, it's taken me all over the country, and never would I have expected to end up here. This is an honor to be on this panel.
Well,
so thank you.
I know well enough that I know you won't. You're not a lady that will definitely say some stats for you. But can you tell me how many Aches you've got on dogs before?
On my own dogs?
Yeah, I mean it's a pretty
dogs that I've shown myself or have bred.
Both.
Okay, I believe I'm over 90 obedience trial champions. And oh my gosh, I never thought about that. Probably 7 of my own dogs are Ach dogs.
That's
but
amazing.
breeding does get in the way of showing. As I think everybody knows. So a lot of my dogs are started maybe not until they're 4 or 5 years old.
Wow.
And when I think about what they could have done if they would have started earlier.
Now, when you say they started, you're talking about you're starting obedience, or you're starting breeding? Okay,
started to compete.
Okay.
But many of those dogs have gone until they were 12. I mean, and not just because I wanted to, I mean, they enjoyed it. And it was like, they just weren't ready to quit. So
absolutely.
I mean,
that's amazing. That really is. And Yvonne's brought up a good point. Listen, I didn't lead her into this. You guys have all heard me here, but how did you acquire your first golden? She told us already. So I'm going to flip it back to Rhonda and ask her that question.
Well, my first golden was from a newspaper ad. My $75 dog that was my first personal dog, although several other dogs had been in my family. And I was given strict instructions that she had to be trained And that was my job. So I started training and went into obedience showing with her. And she got quite a few high-end trials. And at shows, I then was watching the conformation ring and wanted to try that as well.
Awesome. And Karen, I mean, I know that you have been in dogs your whole life, pretty much. As a second generation, I'm right there with you. As a
Yep.
third generation in it, it's amazing. But you know, you've had a lot of dogs, but your dog, like we've all had our first, like what some of us call it our heart dog or something like that. But how did that come about?
Well, interesting. My personal first golden was a female that would have never made it in the show ring, but she was my junior's dog. And her and I were a really excellent, wonderful team. And unfortunately, something that maybe it was best I learned early on, she developed epilepsy.
Mm.
And so obviously her career as far as going to shows was ended. I guess my next golden after that was part of a very famous family, and she was Wochika's Okeechobee Jake's sister.
Ah.
And this was my female that after the first junior dog broke my heart, I picked this puppy up out of the whelping box, and she was Wochika's Windsong, who
Mm.
this day, I believe still is the only one to retire the best of opposite trophy for, I
Wow,
believe, the Eastern Regional. And
that's
it has
amazing.
been one since that. And that's what started. After that, I wasn't even interested in juniors. Bess happened to be a beautiful, beautiful female. And that put me right into the confirmation ring, finishing my first champion at 12.
That's awesome.
So that
That's
was
great.
the one that really started everything about the look I wanted, the temperament I wanted to continue with.
Yeah, I mean, we all start somewhere, and you know, we have that kind of gateway golden that brings us in, and we start this long journey. And I don't say that to talk about age. We're not into that kind of stuff at all.
Yeah,
But
please.
more or less this long journey with our dogs and the experiences, and you know, I'm going to throw it out there. You know, why did you decide to start breeding Goldens? You know, did you have a goal? What did you want to do, you know, with your first litter? You know, did you have a goal in mind, like you were going to start a breeding program, or you were just like, you know, you're just going to have puppies? And I know a lot of us came from different, you know, kind of starting points. But Karen, you know, why did you, you know, decide to become such an active participant? I mean, I know, like we talked about, you had a breeding program kind of established, but then you decided to carry it on.
Correct.
And I was going to add one thing to that, Karen. It's a two-part. Who do you think your most consequential dog has been during your lifetime of breeding?
Consequential to in what
Well, that's up
facet?
to you, dear.
In a breeding facet, in a
Oh, she's tough. She's a tough co-host.
I know.
let me go back to your first original as far as why a breeding program became important to me. And in all honesty, it's because of having a competition with my mother. We started liking a kind of a different look. And if I wanted to prove myself that my look could be just as wonderful as the look that she was going for.
Fair
So
enough.
that's kind
And
of
how were those different?
I went for a little bit more larger dog. I liked the thickness. I wanted a good thick dog. And I also wanted a very, very up personality for showing. And
Okay.
so a lot of these different things, Mom and I always agreed on one thing, a headpiece. So that head, which is, I think, been pretty much established in the kennel name, continued. But other than a little bit, I went for maybe a little bit more fancier dog. Not that I'm looking to give up anything, not that they shouldn't have the substance and the chest and the conformation and the agility and the movement. But we went for a little bit different look. So I wanted to breed my own look, even though it was still the same kennel. And later on through the years, Mom and I did, lots of breedings together.
And just for the edification of our younger audience, tell everyone who your mother was.
Janet Bunce, and she is the founder of Wochika Golden Retrievers. And Mom passed away 3 years ago and was active with Golden Retrievers right all the way through.
Thank you.
I am her second generation, and it's so much a part of my blood, I could never think of giving it up.
And you have two litters right now, even?
I have 2 litters right now. Yes.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I do. It's I absolutely adore having puppies in the house. I love it. There's nothing better. Yes,
True.
lots of things can
Totally.
go wrong.
Yvonne, what about, oh, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
Go ahead.
I was saying, Yvonne, what about you? Yeah, I think, it's just a kind of a really neat question, and I will, don't forget Linda's follow-up.
Okay, with why I started breeding.
Yeah.
Okay, because I had already been in the obedience world with my giant schnauzer, had seen the other Goldens, and I felt that Amber was, a wonderful dog, with obedience. And I seen other males that I liked, and I just wanted to continue that performance background. And
So did you breed to a performance male? I'm interested.
I did, yes,
Okay.
yes, with a pretty strong field background. And Amber's mother was out of a field dog also. So, because I can remember when Amber was, as she was, growing, and I thought she was little, or where's all the coat? And, so I was learning more about the difference between a conformation dog and more of a performance dog, which there should be, I believe that they should both be included. And showing horses, I knew conformation was important. My dogs would never be showing when they're 10 or 12 years old. Most of them have gone till they're 12 if they didn't have good structure. Between when I'm campaigning a dog, traveling all over the country, it's traveling, the showing. Now most of our trials, we have a lot of shows that you have 2 trials a day. And when you get home, you usually have something to fix, or you're constantly working that dog. My dogs that I work, I was at the chiropractor with 3 of them this morning. Just, not that they needed it, just to make sure, everything is good. And I said to the chiropractor, I said, I need to go to the chiropractor. But, I make sure that they get there. A few years ago, my husband gave me the choice of a swimming pool or a new kitchen. And I told him the next day I would like a swimming pool. He called me up later and he goes, I can't believe you want a swimming pool instead of a new kitchen. Well, I'll start swimming my dogs in about 2 weeks. And they love it.
Absolutely.
So it's keeping them in condition.
Absolutely. And how much of this really, when we start that transition from owning to breeding, it is a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle. And Rhonda, you said it really, really well in the beginning about how you're hanging out with your friends. I mean, it's a lifestyle we all join together, and we just start sharing. And tell us about how you made that transition a little.
Well, there was something in me that wanted to breed right from the beginning. And maybe it's sort of a creativity kind of thing, because you sort of go into it thinking, I can have this head that I want, or, you know, whatever feature. And I just liked it right from the beginning. So even though I just started with my newspaper pet, fortunately, she did obtain health clearances, and
Yay.
she was bred. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
oh, go ahead, Linda. You got something. Go for it, girl.
We didn't have a consequential dog from anyone, unless it was their first bitch, but just wanted to know.
Okay, I guess that would have to be Tambark Something's Burning. Her call name was Coke. She was my dog of the year. And probably out of all of my dogs, probably the most intelligent one.
Wow.
She learned articles like the second time I put the articles down. I mean, she just learned extremely quick, but in the same sense, if she became bored. So when she was 6 years old, she was doing walk-ins on signals and things like that. And my husband said, you know, she's done a lot for you already. Maybe you should just, you know, quit. And I knew she had more. So I just changed my training style. She made me a better trainer is what she did. And if I hadn't done that, she would have never been, you know, dog of the year. And she did that. She was a few months shy of 11, I believe.
Wow.
I have a gate going from my kitchen into the rest of the house. I have people come to the house and they don't know how to open this gate. Well, the fourth gate is in their kitchen now because she could open it. She could open it, and maybe we would be outside and all the dogs would be roaming around in the rest of the house.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stories I have of her. And
That's awesome. And it's so fun to be able to tell those and remember them and share them. And I mean, you get that once in a lifetime, you know, dog. Rhonda, did you want to add one?
Sure. It really would have to be Thunder, who was champion Farrah's Future Classic. And he started off with a bang by going reserve dog at 7 months old at the National. And I never specialed him. He finished quickly. I never specialed him. People started seeing his kids. And that litter, actually, there were 2 males and a female. And the numbers on their production, I didn't even realize this until recently. So Thunder produced 135 champions or major title dogs.
Wow.
His brother produced 60, and his sister produced 15.
Wow.
With the sister, 3 of her pups were in the top 10 at the same time. And I don't think there's ever been 3 brothers in the top 10 at the same time.
No.
So that from those siblings, we have over 210 champions.
Wow.
And
Congratulations.
but, you know, let me add something more if you don't mind. Or if it's better later, just interrupt. But Thunder also changed my focus in breeding, because I'd always been interested in health topics beyond the regular clearances and so forth. And he was diagnosed with lymphoma, and I had just been to a health conference And I contacted some of the researchers to say, how can I help? You know, I want to make this better. And it was about the same time that the GRCA GRF health survey came out, letting us know that about 60% of our dogs die from cancer.
Yeah.
And it really, it was almost like a mission for me to try to help researchers and put out calls for people participating in studies. And I am so happy that I still showed and bred somewhat, but I am so happy at the attitude in GRCA changed from everybody being secretive about their health problems. And over the course of the 20 years that I've been doing this, I think people are much more open. And researchers now pick golden retrievers as breeds to study because they know will help them. And we really have that reputation of helping research. So that was a big change that Thunder made for me.
Yeah, and with that, I mean, his impact and made a huge difference on what you did. And one of the questions that we have on here is basically about that, you know, who or what a person or a dog that kind of shaped your way of thinking about your breeding program and continues, like you just said, really in your work today, Rhonda, influences you. And Karen, is there a dog or a person, you know, for you that kind of shapes your breeding program today? Or I know establishing could be another way to look at it, or still impacts your decisions?
That's so hard. I mean, the kennel has sustained for so many years. Every brood bitch is influential. Every brood bitch is special because it's carrying on the line. So for me to be able to sit here now after being involved with a breeding program for over 50 years, it's because of every brood bitch or stud dog that contributed to the pedigree that I am working with today. Now, are there some absolute favorite dogs that shaped me? I mean, I could name everything from Cummings Gold Rush Charlie to, to True Bear, to coming into the dogs that made such an impact showing them. Briarwood, my high flying legend. She was my favorite all-time show dog, and her and I were inseparable. And she is the great grandmother of both the litters I have right now.
Wow.
And, they all become important. I had a wonderful stud dog that had a beautiful pedigree. He was an outstanding sire. He was a Canadian champion, grand champion. He was limited as a stud dog. Certain breeders took their shot on him. And I want to say, I believe in almost all but maybe one of all the litters he produced specialty winners.
Yeah.
Besides himself being a specialty winner. So maybe he didn't have 100 breedings, but his limited breedings were of wonderful quality.
That's awesome.
Let me ask if I could, because
ahead.
you're already touching on that, which is essentially one of our next questions, which is about establishing a family of dogs. And I know each of you have done that. And if you would just take a minute to explain what it means to establish that kind of depth for people who want to start breeding.
Oh, that's a tough one too. I mean, you have to start with a look. And that look, it can't be all about your own ego. You have to get consensus from people who have been successful in the breed and following the standard. Of course, everybody's going to pick their little variations of their preferences, but you need to at least be able to conform to what everybody can recognize as a golden retriever to begin with.
Yeah.
From there, it's investing a lot of years. This is not a short term. I've been told this years ago. This is not a short term investment. It's a long term commitment. And
Yeah.
each time you can produce, you have a healthy, if you're going to be a breeder, you've got a healthy brood bitch to start with. You start aiming for the consistency that from her first litter to maybe her fourth litter, you can see a consistency that's going to conform to the standard and yet still be to your liking.
And with that in mind, Yvonne, and because you've just seen this, with the multitude of title holders that you have, and especially with the characteristics and the drive that you're producing with performance dogs primarily, kind of to piggyback on what Karen said, would you go back, and breed back like to an older dog, with whether you have frozen on that dog, to reinvest in that family of dogs that you've established?
Yes, I have frozen semen on one of my males that I'm purchasing a puppy this summer
Mhm.
that hopefully things, health wise and everything work out that I can go back to that male. I have bitches at home that are in 8th generation now from the first golden. And so also knowing in obedience for almost 40 years, the performance dogs, and remembering the good and the bad, things about those dogs, because it's just not, I want drive, but I want a dog with a good head on its shoulders, confirmation.
Excuse me 1 second. Does that mean mentally or a beautiful head? Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry.
This is the kind of questions we get at the
Yes.
end. That's why I'm asking.
A stable dog, a biddable dog.
Okay.
You can have all the drive and not have that a dog that's biddable. That I have I bought a male. He'll be 5 this coming August. I looked almost 3 years for a certain pedigree, and I love this dog. He sleeps next to me. He has all the drive in the world, but he's able to control himself. He learns fast. I like his structure. And I'm actually having puppies out of him in about 2.5 weeks. That'd be the first puppies.
That's exciting. That's exciting
Yeah.
to be able to bring somebody back like that, to just reinstate that family of dogs that that you cared about so much. And Rhonda, I want to make sure that you get a chance at this question as well. And I'm going to add a little bit on it as far as that, because we do get a lot of questions about breeding itself and going back to a dog to like reinvest or reestablish in your group, and whether it's frozen and I'll just kind of skip to this, but when you think about that and reinstating that dog back into those pedigrees, is there a certain method that you prefer to use when doing that?
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, was that Yvonne or for me?
Either one of you, but I'll start with you, Rhonda.
Okay. So the answer is complicated because
Right.
I really don't breed or show very much.
Okay.
Although I have a young bitch that I'm starting out right now, but I do go back to my frozen. I had frozen Thunder and Star, and I do go back to it.
Mhm.
But partly the reason I go back to it is my comfort level with that line,
Mhm.
but also I don't think any of my breeding will have any kind of impact on current show dogs. I'm really not doing it that much. And so and the reason that's important to me now is all those stats that I told you about last time, the 210 champions and all that crazy stuff. At the time, it was the kind of thing we did. We did lots of line breedings. We bred to popular sires. We, did that kind of thing. What we have found out as time passes is that's harmful to our breed. And in terms of health, that it sets the stage for some of the things that another clearance, another DNA test, all this stuff. That sets the stage because we're narrowing the gene pool.
Yeah.
And if I thought my own breeding was going to have an impact on anybody else, I wouldn't keep line breeding like that, because my breedings are still line breedings. And I think the breeders of today would benefit to learn from my mistakes. I think many of the breed's mistakes in creating popular sires and in a lot of line breeding. It is a good tool in the sense that many of us have shaped our breeding line through line breeding, but it's not in the best interest of the dogs.
Well, I mean, we all know that there's a lot of different ways to establish, and the fact that we're able to go back to some of those dogs and bring them forward in a pedigree now is, and have that technology is really great. And
it is amazing.
Yeah.
And I think some of the current breeders could go back to some of these frozen
Right.
dogs and maybe get away from some of the new stuff.
Right, and
Well,
reestablish.
I'm about to be using Frozen, but I have waited years to make sure that the pedigree was far enough away before I bring them back again. So again, that's not a short-term plan. It's another
Right.
thing that takes time. I have to be able to breed away before I'm going to bring this dog back again. So, and I think there were many stable, good dogs in our past that contributed a lot and would be just as competitive today as they were back then. So, but I think you need to be careful about how close you're bringing it back into. I do believe, I think there are a lot of breeders out there that make a mistake by continually breeding to their own dogs.
Right.
And all through the years, because of constrictions that I had in the amount of dogs I had, I really only had one stud dog on the premises. So a lot of my brood bitches, I went out and sought other stud dogs that suited my purpose, a look I liked, a show dog, something that I thought gelled nicely with my pedigree to keep a consistent look going. But I only kept really one stud dog on the premises. So I certainly kept daughters out of him to keep him going. But I also would kind of like do a zigzag kind of with my pedigree. Stay in, go out, stay in, go out, just so that I wouldn't get trapped into consistently only my own dogs.
Yes, I was going to ask you if you ever considered a top dog, because it sounds like you're very considered about what dogs you went out to with your bitches. Did you use top dogs or top winning dogs, or did you specifically look for a sire? more than a top winning dog?
I was looking for a sire because
Okay.
sometimes, there certainly when you have been in this long enough, every kennel does have a look going for it. Now, there all of a sudden may be a top dog that comes out with the right combination to make him a top dog. But is he going to throw his whole kennel line that I may not like? Or was he just the oddball of that pedigree that was able to make it in the show ring? So I look more for a look that I think is going to be compatible with the pedigree that I have going on here. So
Yeah.
if it happens to be a top show dog, okay.
Okay.
But that's not what drives me to that dog in the first place. I need to like his parents. I need to like a couple of his siblings before I'm gonna be convinced about that dog.
Absolutely. And I'm gonna switch gears just a minute here to talk about something that we get a lot of questions about. And I'm gonna start with you, Rhonda, and these are gonna kind of be very targeted to each of you ladies. So you've been warned ahead of time. But Rhonda, can you comment on the titer testing to determine immunity and what vaccines are needed for adult dogs? And I want your comment, obviously, but in your opinion, has the science proven that vaccines lead to all cancers in dogs or just cancer?
So I am.
I did a total
science
180 on
person,
you, sorry, but
So there is no evidence in dogs that vaccinations play any role in development of cancer. We often hear about over vaccinating. Giving 4, 5, 8 vaccinations all at once is a drop in the bucket to what that dog will be exposed to that day. So there is no known health risk really with vaccinating dogs when the recommendations for those vaccination schedules are. There are a number of vaccinations that we give that have shown to last longer than 3 years, and they're only licensed for 3 years. And if an owner would want to do their first adult booster sometime at 14 months, 18 months, and then skip 6 or 7 years of vaccinating, that would probably make sense just because they don't need it. But if somebody vaccinates that dog, it's not going to harm that dog. But then they really should be picking up, and when the dog starts to getting an older immune system, they really need to restart those more frequent vaccinations.
I have a quick question, Rhonda, following that up. For those who don't have a lot of access to titering, but are interested, are there places they can research what is believed to be the one of the measuring devices of a titer, like what means they are going to be protected?
Well, I guess the first question I would ask is, why do you do a titer? Because titers measure antibodies in the blood, and antibodies go up after a vaccination and they hang around for a while, and eventually they won't be measured by the titer any longer. But long-term immunity is maintained in memory T cells. And getting a negative titer on your dog does not mean that dog is not protected. You really aren't giving yourself any usable information by titering. So it's useful, for example, in breeds that don't develop good immunity and they want to vaccinate the dog and then titer test a month later and see if they had an immune response or if they need another vaccination. But that just isn't Golden's.
Okay, thank you.
yeah, thank you so much for the insight. I mean, we kind of had a preliminary discussion about that before we started, and I just learned a lot in that one statement. So thank you so much. It's very valuable information. Yvonne, I'm going to put you in the hot seat for a minute. Not
Okay.
really. You've got a very comfortable chair, it looks like. So, do you think that obedience people know that the golden standard, and they're committing to getting dogs that are sound and meet the standard, or are they looking for other things that are more important to them? And I don't mean that as a cut at all. Like I mean, it's a question that came to us. I didn't just think of that, but I know that when we were talking about type, when we're talking about things, Karen mentioned it earlier about the look that people want. We do see, frankly, we do see dogs in different areas, whether it's field, performance, show, even specialty dogs. I know I'll say it, that are very different in their look. And so I'll pose the question to you as, our over 100 Otch bred dogs, as far as in your opinion.
I know they do not look like the conformation dogs. I was, in fact, I also got a new puppy that is out of a champion master hunter, a female puppy. And because I would like to walk in the ring with a dog that looked like our conformation dogs. And she's about 13, 14 weeks old, and we're really enjoying her, and she learns quickly. I'm not all that happy that my dogs are, look so different. But there's definitely a difference. Some of them are they're small. They're field dogs, and
let me just reiterate that not to say that one is less as far as the other, as far as their ability to do their jobs at all. I think one thing that a lot of conformation people do is they have this serious look, and they can learn a lot from the other dogs. And the phrase overdone comes to mind when you see in the conformation ring, you have a dog that has a lot of bone. There's no way that dog is going to be doing obedience, because it would be a health risk possibly, or going to be swimming all day. So I think in the middle of it, I don't want it to come across as saying it's so different, why, but saying that there's a meeting of the minds from both sides of it. So
yeah, there is a definite difference. And even my short-coated dogs, if they're in the brush, even those with, not a lot of coat, I'm picking little burrs or those little, so imagine, a long-haired dog going into that. I just had the puppy groomed today for the first time, and she's as cute as can be. So I'm looking forward to showing her, and in the same respect, when I sell puppies, people may see me in a ring with a dog that's a lot of dog, and they are not for everyone. And I try and match people up with the correct puppies when I sell puppies. But unfortunately, there's a difference. There is a definite difference. And it would be nice to get back to the middle.
Right. Karen, we had a question come in as kind of a follow-up to what we said before, and briefly, because I know you kind of hit on it throughout your explanation of what we talked about a little bit, but one of the follow-ups on that we got on our lab chat was, why is line breeding not in the best interest of the dogs, do you think? Or is it more in the best interest of the dogs? And then they kind of followed up that follow-up, just so you know, with talking kind of about choosing a dog to bring into your program. And when you have a dog that has all the testing proved and the clearances and stuff like that, are there are there titles that you feel are a little bit more outstanding to have to join your pedigree versus others? This person particularly does a lot of obedience and rally and possibly wants more dogs with conformation, just as a follow-up.
Okay. Well, and I would like to go into a little bit about the fact of, I fully believe that the Golden should be an all-around dog. It should be able to do obedience, conformation, and field. It's the degree that you're talking about. Now, if you are a field person and you want to go for those master hunters, then obviously less coat, maybe a little less bone is going to be more beneficial to you. An obedience dog, I still want a golden retriever, whether it's a show dog or a field dog or obedience dog, to have enough agility to be agile enough to be able to get an obedience degree. Now, does that mean it can be an Och dog? I don't know.
We'll
I
ask
don't.
Yvonne. We'll ask Yvonne. Well, I'm
Okay.
gonna
Okay.
give her a video of my dogs and say, can this be an Och dog?
Correct. I believe that it should be a well-rounded dog to be able to do all of it.
Yeah.
So if the coat's going to get ripped up when you put it in the field, well, then you don't show it. And when you're ready to show it, you start conditioning it again to get the coat back in again. To go on to the line breeding.
Mhm.
We definitely did have and still do health issues. And I think the more that you double up on certain issues, which is getting a closer and closer pedigree, you've got more chance of these coming out. So I don't mind leaving my pedigree into going into another pedigree to maybe not be doubling up on health issues.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that I want to change my look. There are other lines out there that carry many of the same traits that I enjoy in my dogs. So that's what I would try to put together.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate that. And we've had a lot of people just chime in during the explanation to say thanks for that follow-up. Guys, we got a lot of questions, so I might just kind of rapid fire some of these.
Good idea.
Yeah, I know. Oh, Linda's like, we got so many things coming in. But just kind of, and I'll let whoever wants to take this one, kind of, I'll put it out into the floor, so to speak. But one of the questions is, if you're still breeding, what are some issues that you are currently addressing in your breeding programs? And if you're not currently breeding, what issues do you think need to be addressed? Anybody want to take that one on, or you guys are all like, pass? No, I'm just joking.
I'll say I want to completely concentrate on temperament.
Okay.
You know what? I know we are a show forum and, everything that we're talking about tonight, but I'm going to tell you 90% of my Goldens are sold pet homes with 2 children and families and people that love the Golden Retriever. They've had them before, they've lost it. They can't live without another one.
Yeah.
My number one thing is temperament, big time. I think we have way too many hyper Goldens, and I won't live with one. They need to be calm. They need to lay by my feet, not keep bothering me every 5 seconds. I've got a lot of things to get done in a day.
Yeah.
And now we are bringing dog parks in and doggy daycares. We have got to have good temperaments on these dogs if we want to keep promoting them as the #1 family dog.
Yeah.
Right.
Rhonda, what do you think?
I think it's really, really hard for breeders today because they can't do what we could do 50 years ago. And what we could do 50 years ago is be comfortable getting, all we had was hips and eyes in 1970. And we could eliminate health problems that we knew of because there were a lot of good dogs that did clear hips and eyes. And we didn't have to prioritize health or temperament or type but breeders now, I think they need to start prioritizing the issues, because there are some, we can't afford to narrow our gene pool any longer.
Yeah.
And there are some silly things that people don't want to breed to. For example, missing teeth. Missing teeth, nature's trying to get rid of the teeth because the jaws are smaller than the wolf. We're fighting Mother Nature, and it doesn't hurt the dog. So I think people today need to prioritize their health concerns and show concerns and everything, and don't be afraid to breed to something that is not perfect. We used to think we could breed perfect dogs, and now we know we can't. We have to accept imperfections.
I think a lot of geneticists will say, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, kind of a situation. And Yvonne, one for you, kind of on that lines of breeding, would you incorporate a dog into your breeding program that you know would be or would produce some unfinishable offspring to improve your program? And then there's another question, of course, because these guys are good. Okay. Would you give up winning for a more correct golden, a healthier golden, if it was necessary?
That's just why I bought this puppy recently.
Mhm.
I mean, there are 5 champion master hunters in that litter that from her sire. So definitely, and the health and temperament. And even though I do have field dogs, I'm not looking for crazed field dogs. I'm looking for dogs that, just like she said, are able to lay down by you or and not, pester you, but at the same moment, I'm able to pull them out of the crate when I'm maybe going in for a runoff and that dog is ready to go.
Right.
So yes, I'm excited about this puppy that I just came into our home.
That's great. Rhonda, I got a follow-up one for you, and I'm gonna just because you kind of answered this question, and also is someone asked, do you think with your statement about teeth that it still should be a DQ?
Well, it's not a DQ.
Thank you.
Right. Okay. Well, or unfavorable thing. Yes.
But what happens is, and I've seen this time and time again,
Mhm.
people don't want to breed to stud dogs that have imperfections,
Right.
whether it's missing teeth or a lighter color nose, or they don't want that. And so breeders keep making the choice not to breed to those stud dogs, and it really diminishes the genetic diversity in the breed to only accept perfection.
Yeah, absolutely. Karen, there was a survey that was done, and there were a surprising number. We've been surprised, I guess, at the number of breeders and judges at the who rate gait as one of the top 3 or 5 most important traits in a golden. And this was a survey that a lot of people who are on this webinar got as a judge or a handler or a breeder. And that was one of the 3 or 5 most top things was this gait, and even thought to, it says that a golden, it was even thought that does not take part in, to not have a great gait basically was very less of a dog. And as a handler and a breeder, what parts of the standard are least likely to be appreciated, you think, by judges? And has that changed over time? And how have you dealt with this?
Well, I have a hard time with what I think people that don't know type. And
Thank you.
to me, You should be able to forgive a rear that maybe is slightly cowhocked, or movement that isn't not necessarily perfect. To me, type is still way up there. Movement comes a close second. I do believe that I'm looking for a balanced golden retriever, one that knows how to use its body, because I do believe that that is part of what the golden its function is. It was supposed to be able to work in the field. It is supposed to work in obedience. And to do that, they have to know how to use their body. And that to me is what movement's about. It's not about whether it's a little bit wide in the front or it's a little bit cowhocked in the rear. It's how that dog uses its body to get around. And
Yeah.
to me, that should be light on their feet. It should have a nice, springy, balanced trot going on that they can carry their bodies. So yes, it's an important part for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I know some of these questions can be a little hard to answer, but they're really great. Yvonne, you've got one. Imagine that. Have you seen a change in the drive and biddability of Goldens you started with to the dogs that you see in obedience now?
Yes, I would say that I believe that it's pretty much the same. It's a mixture of the correct dog and the performance dog. I would say that, but there would be, well, I guess it's not even. It's more, more your smaller dogs. I mean, those dogs that are showing weekend after weekend and the training in between. I have a lot of dogs doing agility, and a lot of those dogs are showing up until they're 10 years old or more. And it's, I have jump mats in front of my jumps just to save on the, on their feet when they land on their front feet. Conditioning is important. There's, I've got one of my dogs doing water treadmill. So,
Sorry.
dogs, they're not spoiled.
Whatever.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
There is a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Rhonda, this one came in for you. Do you think the lifespan of a dog correlates to the lifespan of their offspring?
No, it's been pretty definitively shown that lifespan is most closely genetically related to height and body mass.
Okay.
And if our breed has a specific height and body mass that predicts a lifespan of 10 to 12 years, we are at 10 to 12 years. The only way to really breed longer lived dogs is to breed different dogs that are shorter and narrower. And it could be done if people wanted to do it, but it wouldn't be a golden retriever. And no breed has ever successfully broken the connection between height, body mass, and longevity. So studying pedigrees, breeding for longevity doesn't work.
So as a follow-up thing, talking about longevity a little bit, someone wrote in, we know that cancer is an extremely complicated medical condition, but how often do you study the prevalence of cancer in potential lines before you would breed to that dog?
I don't. It doesn't matter. Well, I really am all about health of our dogs, but I don't waste my time on things that don't matter. The genetic predisposition in golden retrievers was most likely came from the founder dogs. It is widely dissipated across countries and within the US and overseas. And whether a dog gets cancer and dies at 7, or a dog does not get cancer and lives to 14, is whether that dog was lucky or unlucky. It tells you nothing about their offspring.
Gotcha. Okay. Good information. I have Sherry asks, this is from Sherry, since the 70s, when she started in dogs, there's been a large swing from natural deliveries to C-sections. So we're taking it a different way here. We're talking about the end result of all this breeding. Can you comment on that? Do you think it's better for the dogs or more convenient for owners, or what do you think? What do you think drives that, Karen?
I think it's a combination of all of that. I think it is convenient for a lot of owners. We've got a lot of people, the breeders of yesteryear and the breeders of today are quite different. The old pioneers, they were people who knew farm life, farm animals, that kind of a thing. So breeding dogs was not any major, problem as far as it's the natural way of nature. The strong are going to live, the weak may die. You do what you can. You're obviously going to be there to oversee. But then we've got a bunch of people today who can't deal with delivery. So
Right.
C-section is the way to go. What's healthier for the dog? I'm not necessarily a vet, so I couldn't necessarily answer that. But I will say that at any cost, I try to avoid a C-section. I've made many a trip to the emergency vet at 2 o'clock in the morning. And my words to them are do whatever you can do, but try to avoid that C-section. So maybe it is getting out one dead puppy so the rest can be born alive. How constant C-sections affect the uterus, affect the female scar tissue, this, that, I'm not exactly sure. But I'm very old school and it's natural pretty much for me. And I'm still a big believer in a real stud dog. If I can avoid it, I don't do artificials.
Right.
I'm very willing to use my stud dog, teach them how to be good stud dogs, which all of mine have been. I've enjoyed that, where I don't have to keep running to the vet to get a breeding on a dog. So I think it's a combination of a lot of things.
Can I ask Yvonne a question?
Yeah.
Sure.
So typically when I talk to people about natural whelping, C-sections, just try to help guide them in their decisions. A general rule of thumb, and these are confirmation people, a general rule of thumb that I've used is that most golden bitches can whelp 7 puppies with no problem. 8 to 10, you can plan on losing 1. 10 to 12, you can plan on losing 2. And 12 plus, you can plan on losing 3. Is that different in obedience lines where the dogs are much more fit, or working lines where the dogs are, they're not the bulky dogs that we have in conformation, and they're probably not, they're more fit. So is that different among your breedings?
I would say that when I had natural breedings, I did not lose many puppies. I was thinking back and how fortunate I've been. I had a natural whelping in December. Um, I called my vet and ran she was in labor, but nothing was happening. And so she actually had to pull the first puppy out. The first puppy was alive. It was a big male. The next puppy was a big female, and she was gone. Let me see, I ended up with 6 puppies, and I lost 3. I took her home when she had 5 puppies, and I took her in the next morning, and there was still 1 big puppy left, and that puppy was gone also. I have had C-sections with frozen semen with dogs that had, passed on or had been gone for quite some time. 2 years ago from a dog that I bred. I didn't own him, but the owner wanted a puppy out of him, and the semen was, I think, about 20 years old. So we did a surgical implant, and that was a C-section. I have a litter due May 15th. That was a natural breeding. We did an ultrasound. Okay. The backstory on this female is she had an open pyometria in the fall. And when I went to the reproduction specialist late on a Friday night, my doctor wasn't in. I seen someone I didn't know, and she said, you really should spay this female. So I set up an appointment to go back down to Illinois on Monday morning. And I never knew she was sick. I was training her, and I have corner mirrors in my building. And I thought, what in the world's hanging off of your butt? Well, it was pus. So, yeah.
Oh.
So, my husband said Sunday she was running around like everything's all fine and hunky-dory. And he says, are you sure you want to spay her? And I said, well, not really. So I went back on Monday morning. I seen the specialist, and she says, well, we can get her through this, and we can try to breed her the next time. So that is what we did. We got her through that. And I drove down to Illinois 5 days in a row for they could keep an eye on her. And the next time this was a surgical implant, a natural breeding this time, but we're having a C-section on May 15th.
Yeah. So
it's not the way that I really like to do that, but she's my next generation. Those puppies are my next generation. So I want to get them here.
Yeah, you're just trying to ensure the what you've already invested in and established. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Rhonda, I'm gonna switch gears for a second, and we got a question in that is kind of a very different than kind of what we're talking about, but kind of it's definitely for you. They said for Rhonda. So given what you said about we have no control over the lifespan of our dogs from the breeding perspective, what are some environmental things we can do to help our Goldens to avoid cancer as much as possible? Like we know about some flea and tick prevention that we can help avoid in some types of cancers. But what can we do? Is there anything you feel we can do, even nutrition or diet wise?
I don't think the answer is in nutrition. We aren't showing that in any of the research. You did hit on flea and tick protection. There's a connection. In Goldens, we've known this for 15 years, that Goldens who have adequate flea and tick protection have less lymphoma, quite a bit less, and a little bit less hemangiosarcoma.
Okay.
But another thing I'll throw out there, your vets are all going to not want you to do this. But
we just went up to like over 200 people on the webinar. No, I'm just joking. But.
Okay. Many years ago, when we were first starting to look at when GRF first came to us with $1 million to spend, and what should we spend this on? And this came up at a cancer conference I was attending, and we sat around just tossing out ideas. And one of the ideas eventually became the Golden Lifetime Study, but not right then, because the price that we got on trying to do what we wanted to do was $2.4 million, and GRF could not do that.
Right.
But the one with 10 cancer researchers or oncologists asked, what would you want to test? 9 of the 10 said aspirin.
Oh,
Aspirin.
Aspirin, because in humans, aspirin significantly reduces many kinds of cancer.
mhm.
In people who take it for heart disease, they're finding that it's reducing their cancer rate. Inflammation at the level of blood vessels drives most of our chronic diseases like heart disease, diabetes, and cancer. And we don't have the data in dogs, but I will tell you, all of my dogs get a chewable baby aspirin in their food every morning.
Mm.
There's really not a lot beyond that we think might work, but of course it's always under investigation.
Yeah.
I actually have a question, and this is wondering about my own dogs.
Uh-huh.
So many new products are coming out that is a once a month supposedly cure all. It's going to take care of everything that they want us to ingest. Now, is that a safer route to go than using any topicals? Like if we're talking flea and ticks, where I'm not in a heavy tick infested area. And for me, the seasons here on the East Coast, we maybe have 3 months where we're going to see more of a problem with this. I feel a little bit more comfortable going with the topical stuff as opposed to all these new once a month things that they want our dogs to ingest.
Well, the oral products, the way they kill fleas and ticks they go through 2 different kinds of pathways. One is that they affect the exoskeleton, the shells of fleas and ticks, and dogs and humans don't have that pathway in our biology, so it does not affect us. And the other way is they can go through an insect arthropod nervous system pathway. And we also have a different kind of nervous system. So I think the chances are probably very good that the orals are very safe. And, you know, I think that would be a question between you and your vet.
Mm-hmm.
Jenny, we ought to probably get to those 2 questions.
Yeah, I know those 2
Total
questions. I think you mean the 22.
Right, not the ones that are coming over the thing, but the ones we sent to our panelists ahead of time.
Yeah.
Like the guy from Indonesia.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, so yeah, this show to everybody who's been on with us, thank you so much for hanging in there. We've fluctuated from anywhere from 120 to 175 people just on this Zoom. So thank you so much. And the questions are amazing. And I love how you guys are asking each other questions. You guys, this is awesome. But we're worldwide with these things. So like Rhonda said before, you can't hide anywhere, you guys.
No.
So yeah, you know, this question comes to us from Indonesia, and it says they are a golden retriever enthusiast, and it says, I want to learn more about it. So my question is, aside from good bloodlines, good sires and dams, titled parents, well breeding, feeding, and environment, if I want a show quality puppy from a breeder, how to know if the puppy how to know the puppy that the breeder gives me is really a show quality puppy. And it goes on to say, what to look for at the ages of anywhere from 2 to 3 months. How do I know that the head will turn out like the parents, or the leg, or more? Just says, thank you for answering my question. So I'll put it out there if anybody wants to jump in.
Okay, go.
Yeah, not all at one time.
Well, getting I think people have a preconceived notion. First of all, if you're interested in a show puppy from me, you're going to have to prove to me that you're serious about this commitment, which means that you need to go to shows even before you get a dog. You need to learn about the shows. You need to start understanding what the commitment is to getting a show dog. The second thing is, we all know that Goldens are once again on the rise. Every breeder that I know has got long waiting lists. There doesn't seem to be enough puppies out there. So if you can prove to the breeder that you're going to be serious about this, that you're going to use them as a mentor, if you people get along, anybody that wants to show, they have to stay in touch with me about training, about grooming, about health issues, about clearances. And then the other thing is, there's always going to be more than one good puppy in a litter. I know everybody wants, well, I have to have the pick. I want pick female. I want pick male. Well, most of the time as a breeder, I keep from most of my litters. And I'm going to keep my pick first, whichever one that I am drawn towards. That doesn't mean that there isn't other good puppies in the litter.
Yeah.
So a lot of it has to be the education of the people who are looking for that show dog. You just can't walk up to a breeder and say, oh yeah, I want a show dog, without proving that you're learning, that you've gone to seminars, that you've talked to several breeders, that you've gone to dog shows to find out what it entails. That to me would be a start.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We also had another question that we sent out to you guys, and thanks, Karen, for taking that on. Kenzie asked, she's a 23-year-old who is starting out, and she works as a licensed veterinary technician. And she says, I have finally have the means and the space to start my own small breeding program. She's struggling. She said, I've contacted a lot of show breeders, gone to lots of conformation, agility, flyball, rally, etc., to watch and learn, and I keep hitting a wall. Show breeders don't want to sell on full registration to someone who hasn't shown before, like you were saying, Karen, about, kind of establishing some relationship. She understands, but she's not sure how to get started, and she keeps hitting this wall. And if she were to have a few mentors who were to help her and answer questions, she feels like she could be helped. She really wants to start, but she can't seem to find her way in. What's your advice? And I'll let you all answer this question, please, to someone who's trying to start out. And she says, thank you so much for taking her question. Do you have anything that you'd like to start out with, Yvonne?
I sell most of my puppies on limited registration. If someone was referred to me and they were committed to training the dog and showing it, I would possibly start with a co-ownership. I don't have any co-ownerships now, but I have in the past, because we all have to get started somewhere, but I have also had bad experiences. And so that's why my pups are on limited registration. And like I said, if most of my puppies sold are repeat customers and referrals. I know it's hard. And there are people looking for Goldens. I never have had so many requests for puppies.
sure.
But AKC has given us that way of protecting our dogs.
So you would feel
Mm.
more comfortable selling to someone getting started if they had a referral?
A referral, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Rhonda? I know you're not as actively breeding as the other two, but in the past, or what would you be most comfortable with helping someone get someone started?
Well, I do think you have to form relationships and join your local Golden Club. Again, as Karen said, you have to go to shows and meet people. Even offer to help a person. Oh, are you going to the show? Can I come along if I help you set up an X dogs? And would you let me watch you groom? And, you know, things like that, be helpful to the person, and they're going to get to know you and build a relationship. And that's how you get a puppy from a good breeder, I think.
Yeah.
But you also probably do have to start off with a limit. Limits can be lifted once the clearances are achieved. And
So let me ask you a question for somebody like this young woman. If she wants a puppy to show, so she can show in sweepstakes, but we sell to her on a limited registration, then that's not possible. So would you address the question about co-ownership? Is that a possibility for you so that a person could show as a puppy with a puppy?
I've done that in the past. Yeah, starting off breeders are going to be more flexible mainly because they are also looking for show homes.
Right.
So you might be sort of a novice handler or a novice show person, and you might get a puppy from sort of a novice breeder. And, you know, but those dogs eventually, I mean, breeders, we're all starting somewhere. You're starting the show, they're starting to breed.
Yeah.
And so.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I know, Karen, you kind of hit on this before about, you know, talking about establishing relationship, but is there anything you want to add?
I mean, again, personally myself, someone if they're interested in starting show, they're going to have to prove themselves to me. They're going to have to keep in contact. Anybody who's looking to buy a puppy from me, I tell them, bug me, hound me. I don't, if maybe I'll pick up the phone, maybe I won't, maybe I'll get back to you. But they have to take some responsibility. They have to be starting to zero in on a certain kind of look. And the only way they're going to find that out is by showing up at shows.
Mhm.
Seek out where the local shows are in your area. Start going. If you see someone walking around with a pretty golden, ask them, did they breed it? Did they buy it? Where did they buy it from? If you bred it, are you having any more litters down the road?
Right.
These are all things to start preliminary if you're really going to be a committed person. I mean, it's happened to all of us where somebody walks in the door and says, yeah, I want to show dog. I want to show this dog. And you give them a really, really nice puppy and they go to maybe 2 shows and then they decide, nah, we're too busy for this.
Yeah.
So, you know, someone who is this young woman who's looking to break into this, she needs to decide on a breeder and hound them. Bug 'em.
There you go. Well, I
Good
mean,
suggestion.
yeah. I mean, we've got some amazing mentors right here, obviously, and we have learned so much in this I can't believe the time's just flown by with you guys. We've definitely gone over the allotted amount of time that we planned on having, but it was great. It was really great. I know before we close out, we've got some announcements, but again, and we can't thank you enough for your time this evening, for your knowledge, for sharing that, and with the hundreds of people that have logged on with us. And thank you so much for all the questions. Before Linda gets to some announcements, I will just say I have been copying down your questions that have not been answered. I will share them with the committee, so you guys will make sure that you get your questions answered. And then I'll send those to the Breeders' Education Committee. So don't despair. We've got so many good questions. I have a huge list. But I know my co-host, thank you so much, Linda, for being here with
Oh,
me.
I don't know. Well, anyway. That's good.
No, it's
I
great. And
enjoy
I have some announcements, and I also want to make sure that I've gotten a lot of comments on, yes, you can see Kathy Turner on this webinar, and she has been our silent partner in this, but she has something to say that'll be important. So don't worry. She's been very quiet, but she will come on and tell us some things. So Linda, I'll let you get some announcements out of the way.
Lori,
Okay.
I got some puppies to go feed. Is it okay if I can take off now?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Karen, and
Absolutely.
thank you
you
for-
so
Thank you,
much.
Karen.
And I want to thank you for having me. I enjoyed every minute of it.
Hey,
Right.
Karen, I want to tell you one quick thing. I have frozen semen on a or dog sired by Jake from 1975.
Oh, my goodness. Goodness.
Wow.
Well, let me know when you use it.
That's great.
It was good seeing you all. Linda, you look wonderful.
Oh,
So
well,
I
thank
think
you.
you're doing good. And
Yes,
thanks
you
guys
guys.
again. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Karen. Linda, tell us those announcements real quick.
Okay,
before we jump off.
Couple, and you already went over one of them, and that is that if anybody sent a question, we will get those questions to each of the panelists, and we will probably have a small meeting amongst ourselves and discuss those questions, and then those will be posted on Facebook, I believe, Jenny. And then the other is very, very exciting news for our very next webinar. We have had Wendy Townsend agree to be on our webinar, totally just her for the whole webinar. It will be co-hosted by Ann Hubbs, who is our chairman of Health and Genetics Committee. And put this date on your calendar for May 25th. It's our normal Tuesday, and it'll be at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So that's it. And thank you all for being here. We hope you learned a lot.
Absolutely. Kathy, take it away, our silent partner.
I just want to thank everybody for doing this. I want to thank everybody who's attended. Starting with the pigmentary uveitis webinar, we will not only be live on Facebook, but thanks to Jenny's research, we will also be live on YouTube, so we can reach out to more people. This has been fabulous. I've been silent here and just having the best time listening to all you guys and loving the interplay between Jenny and Linda. So thank you very much. It has been fabulous, and I'm just over the moon, as all the committee members are, that Wendy Townsend has agreed to do this for golden retrievers. So it's going to go up next week. Please get your questions in right away for Wendy, because she wants to be able to prepare slides that will address some of the questions. So we want to do more of that ahead, so she has a chance to tell us what we need to do. I can't think of anything right now in our breed that is more important than pigmentary uveitis.